Hi guys, it's me, Katrina O'Neill. So today I'm going to be reading a little bit more of my book since you guys seem to like that so much. And also I have a bit of news to share with you. So I've been working on a Five Nights at Freddy's theory with Toy Bonbon's Adventures. And we've been trying to prove game theory wrong. And we were wondering if you guys could help us just a little bit. So I guess let's get on to the story. I've edited it a lot, so it'll be completely different from last time. I stood in the middle of the forest, eyes closed, sword at my side. Slowly, I raised my sword and twirled it around. I regulated my breath so that I would not run out in the middle of my exercise. I created my enemies in my mind. They were the half-breed Fae, the ones who I had been warned to stay away from. In my mind, I was surrounded by them. They were barely recognizable as Fae. They looked more like fallen elves. I spun in a circle, then stabbed forward with my sword. My imagination allowed me to stab one of the half-breed Fae through the stomach. I wrenched my blade free from my imaginary enemy, whirling around once again. I had every corner of this clearing memorized so that I had no need to fear tripping over stones or backing into trees. A Fae was in front of me, grinning madly. I allowed my consciousness to take control, creating a new Fae every time I knocked one down. Suddenly, my blade caught on something for real. My eyes flew open to see a young boy with short brown hair and a goofy grin plastered across his face standing in front of me. He was wearing a black shirt and black pants. His mouth was mostly hidden behind a scarf so gauzy I could see right through it. He had the blade of my sword between his hands. "What?" I began, then broke off as he wrenched my sword out of my hands. "Hey!" I cried as he tossed it into the air and flipped it around. I reached out a hand towards it and reached for my magic. The sword glowed and disappeared, then reappeared in my hand in an instant. I thrust it back into its sheath, scowling at the boy. I stalked towards him, annoyance burning in my eyes. He leaned against the tree, appearing at ease. He closed his eyes, but I could tell that he was peeking at me. He tried to look relaxed, but I could sense he was on edge. "Who are you?" I demanded as I stopped before him. "Nobody. Who are you?" he replied. "Cheeky little brat." "No, do not think like that. You're probably no older than him, maybe even younger," I scolded myself. "That is not the answer I wanted," I said. "Since you look so trustworthy, my name is Shaden," he said, standing up straight. He was about a head taller than me. "Who are you?" he asked, looking down at me. "My name is Phoenix," I replied, brushing my hair out of my face. "As I was watching you, I decided that maybe you look like a worthy opponent," he said. My face must have shown my disbelief and rage as he chuckled. "Are you serious? You show up, steal my sword, then ask me very calmly to fight you?" I sputtered. "Aw, come on, little princess. I know who you are. I want to at least try to defeat you," he said. "Unbelievable." I was completely astonished. I turned away and stalked to the other side of the clearing. My mind was racing. Under normal circumstances, I would have considered him a worthy opponent. However, as he raised a cocky eyebrow at me, I pulled out my sword and stepped my left foot in front of my right, placing my right hand closer to the crossguard and my left hand closer to the pommel in the classic fighting pose. His face brightened as he saw my intent, and he copied my stance, pulling his own sword from its sheath. I silently counted down. 3, 2, 1. Then I lunged. She'd encountered my blow with his sword, sparks flying off our blades as they collided. I spun in a circle, executing the pattern that I had memorized. Shaden blocked every blow with a lazy flick of his sword. I stepped back, gasping for breath, my astonishment written across my face. He grinned at me. "Wow, if that's the best you can do, I'll have no problem beating you," he gloated. As he was bragging, I leapt. He was completely unprepared for my attack. He stumbled backwards as he fumbled with his sword. In another instant, he was on his back and I was kneeling on his chest, the point of my sword resting on his collarbone. "You underestimate me," I said fiercely. He looked surprised, then he laughed easily. "So the rumors are true," he crowed. "Such an incredible fighter, but your superiority is your weakness." He clambered off his chest. I looked up to the sky and saw that dawn was fast approaching. "I should go. I should have been home by now," I said to Shaden, turning back to him. "It was nice to meet you," he said, holding out his hand. I sheathed my sword and shook his hand firmly. "Speak for yourself," I grumbled under my breath. As I turned to teleport away, Shaden said, "Hey, Phoenix?" I turned to him. He looked upset and nervous. I would really appreciate it if you would not tell anybody about this, I'm not really supposed to be here. being the demon prince and all, but I sort of, ran away from home. Now there's going to be guards all over looking for me. So if you could, please keep it a secret, he explained. I hesitated. If I tell somebody, I could be rewarded for bringing the prince back. On the other hand, if it was found out that I had spoken to him, I could be executed. I finally said, "Okay, I will keep your secret, on one condition. You will tell nobody that you met me. Got it?" He nodded. Of course not. Both of us jumped at the sound of voices in the trees. "Come on, over here. I hear him." Shane's face drained of color. "Oh no," he whispered. I looked him straight in the eye. "Follow me," I mouthed to him. He nodded. I walked over to a tree with low branches, grabbed onto one, and pulled myself up. I reached down a hand and grabbed his wrist. I lifted him onto the branch next to me. Both of us crouched there side by side. Then the guards burst out of the bushes. It was a group of 4, 1 girl and 3 boys. They had their swords ready and were wearing the black armor of the Demon Royal Guard. The only girl, the one who seemed to be the leader, threw down her sword in frustration. "Another false lead," she cried. "We've been searching for days and still not a single sighting of him." She sat down on the ground, her head in her hands. I glanced at Shaden and nodded. As one, we let out a cry and dropped to the ground. "Here I am," he called out. The girl was on her feet in an instant. "Get him, forget the girl," she cried. I glanced at Shaden and gave him a feral grin. "Together?" I asked. "Together," he assured me. I had never fought in a real battle before. I had no real experience. However, I was enjoying this. I made sure I knew where Shaden was at all times, watching him out of the corner of my eye. I found myself fighting a red-haired demon who had a big nose and black eyes. I kept him a pattern, but still couldn't touch him. Then I made my first mistake. I heard talking off to the side. I turned my head to look. The girl that was leading the demons was seemingly talking to herself, 2 fingers pressed to her right ear, and I was struck in the side of the head with the pommel of the sword. I let out a sharp cry of pain and surprise as I fell. My head hit the ground before I could get my hands under me. I tried to push myself up, but I was too dizzy. My vision was going blurry. There was a sharp kick to my side. "Our mother!" I cried out in pain as the kick sent me rolling. I was laying on my back, winded, the blurry form of a grinning demon standing over me, holding a sword. My head was pounding, and I couldn't think straight. I saw the demon swing at me and thought dimly, so this is where it ends. However, this was not to be. Another sword blocked it with a single strike and a crash that made me cry out and curl up into a ball, covering my head and ears. There was a moment that seemed to last forever as pain blossomed yet again in my head. Then all went silent. I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. I looked up slowly to see someone who I thought was Shaden. He held out his hand to me. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, sounding concerned. I tried to push myself up again, only to collapse into a small heap. "Oh, our father," he gasped. He pulled me to my feet. I staggered slightly, the world tilting and swaying dizzyingly. "Look at me, how many fingers am I holding up?" he asked. I looked up at him slightly. My vision was still blurry. I squinted to see. 4, I guessed. 3, he said grimly. He pressed 2 fingers to the bump on the side of my head. I cried out in pain. "You most likely have a concussion. How do you feel?" he asked, pulling his scarf away from his mouth so I could hear him clearly. "My head hurts. My vision's blurry. I'm dizzy." My sentences were short and choppy. Can you get back to your dimension?" he asked, sounding concerned. "Of course. Our mother made sure we all could," I snapped. "Whoa, I mean in your condition," Shaden said calmly. He released me, and I stumbled, almost falling before he grabbed me again. "Nope, I guess I can take you," he sighed. "I have no need of your help," I spat. He just pulled me closer and spun us around, making me more dizzy. I felt as if I were about to throw up. Then I recognized the white haze of the 3rd dimension where I lived. I knew by instinct that I was standing on the doorstep of the grand palace where I lived. Then Shaden was gone. I stumbled against the door, producing a loud thump. I heard a familiar voice ring out from inside. "Coming!" I recognized it as one of the maids, Farika. The door opened, and I practically fell inside. "Oh, Lady Phoenix!" Farika cried out. I was instantly in her arms. Farika was the head maid. I heard her dishing out orders to the other maids in the close vicinity. And then she said to me, "Lady Phoenix, I am going to take you up to your room. Lady Calypso will be with you in a moment." My ears were ringing, and I could barely hear her through my haze of exhaustion, nausea, and pain. Farika carried me up the stairs to my room, pushing open the door and shoving things off my bed. She laid me down on the bed, tucking the covers up to my chin. Another one of the maids I didn't know the name of hurried up to the bed with a bowl of water. She pulled out a rag and gently pressed it to my forehead. Just then, the door to my room slammed open, causing me to wince with the force of the sound. Mother, O King Calypso of the gods, stormed in. "Thank you, Liza. That will be all," she said, nodding to the maid holding the bowl of water. Liza set down the bowl of water on the bedside table and scurried out of the room timidly, closing the door behind her. Mother instantly sat on the edge of my bed and began gently mopping at my forehead. "Farika, fetch bandages," she ordered softly. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said, curtsying before running to get the bandages. "Oh, my poor child, what did you do to yourself?" Calypso murmured quietly. "Do you know what happened to you?" she questioned me. "No, only doing my normal training routine," I responded. I could barely stay awake. "My dear, you have a severe concussion. There's no way to get that from training. Please, do you remember anything else?" she pressed. I frowned slightly, concentrating. "I think there was a boy. Yes, a boy with black hair. He had a transparent scarf around his mouth. He had a friend with red hair, a big nose. I remember pain, then being here," I murmured, pausing to answer to my words. "They must have attacked you. Oh, you poor thing, you must have been so scared." She grew quiet, gently wiping it at my forehead. "Lady Calypso, here are your bandages," Farika said, bringing a roll of bandages. She handed them to Calypso, then turned to leave. I turned my head to her. "Wait, Farika," I said. My words were slightly tangled. "Yes, Lady Phoenix?" she replied. I opened my mouth and realized I had forgotten what I was going to say. "Never mind, I forgot." Farika curtsied, then left the room. "Look at me, my dear, dear child," Calypso murmured, gently taking my head in her hands. She turned my head so that she could see the left side, and sucked in a sharp breath. Picking up the small bell at the side of my bed, she rang it loudly. A maid scurried up. "Lady Calypso, you called?" "Yes, Misaki." "Look," Calypso said, pushing my hair away from my temple. I let out a small groan of pain as Misaki ran her fingers over the spot. "What or who could do that to her?" Calypso asked quietly. Misaki began to reply, but I never heard her. Consciousness slipped away from me as exhaustion took over. I woke up all alone. My head was hurting badly. I reached up and touched the bandage that was wrapped around my head. "Ow," I groaned. Thinking about anything hurt. There was a pair of eyes burned into my memory, dark brown eyes. I could just barely make out slightly tanned skin around the eyes. "Lady Phoenix?" a small voice asked. I opened my eyes. "Hello, Annie." My voice sounded thick and my words were a bit twisted. "Mistress Calypso sent me to check on you," she said meekly. "How do you feel?" I was not sure how to respond. "Well, considering I have a severe concussion, I'm just great," I said dryly. "Well, I brought you some food. Do you want me to get Mistress Calypso?" she asked, handing me a plate of pancakes. I smiled. My favorite. "Yes, please. Also, maybe Finn?" Finn was my older brother. He was next in line for the throne. "Yes, ma'am," Annie stammered. She backed out of the room. This was how my life went for the next week or so. When I woke up, a maid would come into my room and change my bandages before Calypso and Finn came in. Finally, one day, Calypso and Finn were in my room when it all came flooding back. Finn was saying, suddenly I sat bolt upright in my bed with a gasp. "I remember now," I cried out before groaning and laying back down, pressing a hand on my temple. "Phoenix, little one, be careful. What did you remember?" Calypso asked. "I remember how I got hurt," I said excitedly. "I was training, then I was attacked by a group of demons. There were 4 of them, 3 boys and a girl. They said that they were looking for someone. I do not know who. They attacked me. I did nothing wrong," I said earnestly. I remember my promise to Shaden. Calypso's face was like thunder. I cowered slightly on my bed as she rose to her feet. "You said that demons did this to you?" she demanded quietly. "Yes," I said softly. Now Finn was on his feet.